Golly gee, Florida State stumbles right out of the gates in Dublin. I'm wearing my Georgia Tech gold. Ain't that right, Gojo? That's right. I'm going to go over an updated top 25 as well as some of the prospects that stood out this weekend. I'm Broshmo. It's football, bro. That's right. You can catch this live on the YouTube, or if you prefer audio, you could check out it on any of the podcasting platforms. I'll leave links for those in the description. But let's go ahead. Let's get into this sucker. Let's talk about what actually transpired this past weekend when it came to that Dublin game, that Georgia Tech, Florida State. Because it started out with a bang, right? It started out with a bang. It was kind of nuts. It was kind of wild. You had back-to-back scores by both squads. It looked like it was going to be this big Russian affair, and then suddenly the offenses went inept. They went phallic. It just wasn't pretty. It was like, okay, man, this is going to be a bit of a dogfight. It kind of was. And the big thing that stuck out about Florida State, because I know DJU, we're going to talk about them a little bit later when we go over some of the prospects from this game. A lot of people are giving DJU a lot of hate, and I don't think a lot of that is deserved. Was he perfect? No. Was he great? No. Was he good enough? I believe so. I believe he was good enough. Was he wildly inaccurate at times? Yes. Was there maybe a poor decision or two in there? Probably. But he was good enough to win this game. He was good enough to win this game. Like, the guy didn't have like a turnover worthy play. Sure, he had that deep ball that luckily was a pass interference, eventually led to a score. And honestly, that was probably, outside of the opening drive, that was probably Florida State's biggest play, which is kind of wild. But aside from that, like, this defense was not good for Florida State. It wasn't. They couldn't stop the run. They couldn't get pressure on Haynes Keene. And to be fair, a lot of that was schemed up by the Georgia Tech offense. They did a good job of putting guys in motion, getting the ball out quickly, whether it was like screens, RPOs, and such. See? Gojo, Keelan, they're not happy about it. They're not. And it wasn't a pleasure to see Florida. I mean, I guess it was. It was kind of a pleasure to see Florida State go down. I mean, it was like, I was saying the previous week, right? The whole buildup, Georgia Tech plus 10.5. Give me that. Easy money. I didn't expect them to win the game. Georgia Tech played a great game. Does that mean they're going to be this like top contender? Absolutely not. I don't think so. Unfortunately, I don't think they're good enough for that. They can be an 8-win team. They certainly can. I don't know if they're going to be vying for the playoff. Maybe they just prove me wrong. That would be awesome. It's just, I don't think Florida State's as good as we anticipated them to be. And to be fair, this is the opening week. We might see teams, well, go with the slow approach. Maybe we see these teams that are just being put on the stove and they take a little time to boil. I'm going to talk about Penn State a little bit later when we look at this upcoming week's games. By the way, we're going to be doing a watch along all day. We're going to be streaming, having a watch party for 3 games on Saturday. That's going to be a ton of fun. I'm hoping not to lose my voice. But like, at the end of the day, man, Florida State just came out, and now they have to be essentially perfect the rest of the year. They have to be perfect the rest of the season. And the question is, can they do that? I mean, shoot, let's just go ahead. Let's take a quick look at Florida's schedule, which, I mean, I don't think it's favorable. I wouldn't call it favorable. But I mean, the next 4 games, I guess 5, because we'll talk about SMU in a second, but Boston College should be a win. I know it's Bill O'Brien, but still, that's new head coach there. Memphis might be their toughest matchup there. Don't sleep on Memphis. And then, I mean, to be fair, they get that in Tallahassee, so that's kind of nice. Cal and then SMU. But then Clemson, Miami, Hurricanes, baby. Do you. North Carolina, which still, I mean, I feel like North Carolina, okay, you lost some things, but there's enough players coming back to where I'm like, okay, you just can't sleep on them. Notre Dame and Florida. I think if you're going to compete in the ACC, you might only have one loss left in you. That's just me. That's just me. But regardless, let's keep this sucker going. Let's talk about the only other game that I did watch this weekend. I guess I should highlight at least the games that I didn't watch. Montana State, they end up beating New Mexico. Awesome. I mean, 21 points for Montana State in the fourth. I did see the highlights. Looked kind of dope. But let's talk about this SMU team. Because they were like 24, 27-point favorites to Nevada. And they came out and they didn't look great. This team couldn't run the ball successfully for a majority of the game. I mean, you saw some good things from what was the cat's name? Brashard Smith, I think. You saw some good things from him, but ultimately, like, this team couldn't consistently run the football. Preston Stone was fine. He was fine. He was nothing special. I mean, shoot, they were going with like a 2-quarterback approach at times. To be fair, I mean, they brought in, what was it, Kevin Jennings on more like scripted and schemed up plays, but still, like, hey, just, you got Preston Stone. He's your quarterback. Don't worry about who his backup is. Why you got his backup on the field? What are we doing here? What are we even doing? But Preston Stone ends up having 2 big-time throws, with one being the game winner there to RJ Maryland. Fun fact, we'll talk about him in a little bit. But turnover-worthy play, which resulted in the interception. He was only he had an adjusted completion percentage of 66.7%. Like, this was a team that kind of lucked out at points. Like, you had the safety, and like Nevada, it should have never been this close. And you're kind of hoping with SMU, if you're an SMU guy or gal, that this is one of the, this is like this is a team you set on the stove, they'll boil. Just wait. When they get hot, they'll get hot. To be fair, they have the schedule that kind of permits that. Like, it's not exactly a difficult schedule. It's not exactly a hard schedule for SMU. That's why, like, I have them in my top 25, which we'll talk about in a sec. Because again, Florida State losing out of the gates, you got to move things. So I was like, okay, let's just do a quick adjustment to the top 25 going into week 1. But yeah, I mean, we could talk about the SMU defense, or we could talk about what SMU defense. Like, they got ran on. How many rushing yards did? Okay, so Nevada puts up like 155 rushing yards. Brendan Lewis, the quarterback, to be fair, he was the quarterback. So, okay, you're not mad. You're not sad the quarterback is going to run on you, but you would think you would kind of anticipate that going into the game and you'd prepare for it, but it is what it is. He ends up going for 85 yards. Really, the only pulse that they had in this game, or maybe you had Elijah Roberts, who had 5 pressures, didn't come up with the sack though. In the run game though, it's not like he was anything special. You really had no one really stepping up for SMU on this defense. I mean, you had Ahmari Harvey, former Hurricane, do you, baby, do you? But he had one play. Where it was like, okay. I mean, it was big time, but still, nonetheless, SMU, I'm a little worried about. Let's run through just some of the other games. Delaware State, they end up losing to Hawaii. I think that was the only other game. We'll come back and we'll talk about some of the games this weekend, specifically the ones that we're going to be doing a watch along for. But before we get into that top 25, I got to give a shout out to the sponsor of this video, of this stream. And that's, of course, our good friends at Underdog. Real quick, I got to give a shout out to today's sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. I absolutely love Underdog Fantasy because I love football, and now that the football season is far and away, it doesn't mean my betting season has to be, because they do all kinds of sports, whether it's baseball, basketball, esports even. They got you covered, whether that's weekly best ball or my favorite, higher lower on player props. So if you sign up at Underdog Fantasy using promo code BROSHMO, then they will give you a first-time deposit up to $250. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. So if you're going to go and bet with Underdog Fantasy, use promo code BROSHMO, take advantage of this offer, but please bet responsibly and bet within your means. Okay, let's talk top 25. Like I said, really, it's going to be a marginal change with Florida State falling down. So among this just missed it list, again, if you don't know how I do my top 25 every year, I go in, I look at the schedule, and I adjust accordingly. I don't go in based on, oh, I think this team's good, this team's good, this team's good. No, I look at the strength of schedule, and I project it. So you're going to look at this top 25, and I'm hoping to accomplish by that it's going to look a lot closer to what it is prior to the college football playoff, like right before. I'm hoping that this will be similar to what it looks like at the end of the year, rather than having these open, like just having one with just good teams on it. Like, to me, that's like, why? Let's project this, and then let's adjust it accordingly from our projections. So these teams that just missed it, obviously Georgia Tech is going to be in the fold here. I mean, this is a team, like, honestly, you look at their schedule, they could win like the next 3 or 4 games and probably end up in my top 25. And if this is a team better than anticipated, like, I already thought like they were a solid enough team, but I was figuring more around that like 7-5 area. But if they end up being like 8-4, maybe 9-3, then certainly, yes, they're going to be, they should be included in a top 25. But I'm very conservative. Is that the word I'm looking for? I'm very careful. I'm very I like to wait and see before I move these teams up and down. I don't try to be overreactional. That's a word. I don't try to overreact. There we go. That's probably a better way to put it. I don't try to overreact to things on the week by week basis. Instead, I try to go with, okay, this team's just not been good the last few weeks. Let's move them down a few spots. So Georgia Tech, they're going to be in this just missed it list. They'll maybe sit here for a few weeks, and they might have to wait for some of these teams maybe to lose some of these big games. Because keep in mind, with college football, the way that it is currently, we're going to get more of these bigger games early. We are. Some of the usual suspects, you got USC, you got Oklahoma. To be fair, they are in year one of their new conferences. So there might be a learning curve. There might be a bit of a struggle there. Virginia Tech is one of my underdogs, like one of my sleepers. I think they could end up being very, very good this season. And I think they could even be like a 9-win team. So, like, don't sleep on Virginia Tech. That's a team with a ton, and I mean a ton, of prospects. Let's go ahead. Let's actually talk about this top 25, starting with, we got Oklahoma State. They are probably the most veteran team on this list. I just think they probably drop a couple. I think they're going to be in the race for the Big 12. And again, yes, this is a team that I think returned like the most starters than any other Power 4 school this season. But I don't believe in, was it Bowman at quarterback? The 7th-year senior or something? I don't believe in him. But I got him here at 25. Toledo, I like the coach. I like Jason Candle there. He does a good job. Could be a down year, but maybe the MAC sneaks in their conference champion in the top 25. Kansas, I love Kansas. I love the coaching staff. I love a lot of the players on the team, whether it's like Devin Neal, Kobe Bryant. But If we're gonna be real, if we're gonna be honest, Jalen Daniels, can you stay healthy? If he can, this team's gonna probably finish higher than this. UTSA, this is another case where I just really like the coach. They did lose a lot of stars, but they brought in some good transfers. But I am a big sucker for Jeff Traylor, so I got them out there winning the AAC. Florida State, this is where I end up dropping them, 21. And this is a big drop. This is a huge drop. Already, as I kind of projected they could be your ACC champions, for me, it's kind of this 3-team race with Miami and Clemson. And for me, it was a bit of a toss-up. So I had them relatively high on my board. I think they were at 11 previously. They take the big drop. They stumble out the gates. And listen, if Miami stumbles out the gates and loses to Florida, to be fair, that's a good Florida team, but a good Florida team with a tough schedule. That might be a good 7-5 Florida team, but they'll drop as well. If they can't win. Can Miami win the ACC for the first time ever? Why am I talking about Miami when we're supposed to be talking about Florida State? Well, because we're talking about the ACC. But Florida State, I ended up dropping them. It's a pretty big drop. It's a pretty big drop. Let's go ahead. Let's move on to that next slate of teams here, as Kansas State probably ends up my biggest riser, just because like going back and like looking, it's like they have a very friendly schedule. And sure, like Avery Johnson, I believe that's the new quarterback there, Avery Johnson. You correct me if I'm wrong, doing this off the top of my head. So I am willing to be wrong, but new quarterback there. But I believe in the talent. Probably ranked them a little bit too low. I think initially I had them at like 22. So 20 feels a bit better. Tennessee, I like Tennessee. They got some players, they got some ballers, they got some playmakers. We will see Nico in his first full year as a starter. Just saw him in the bowl game last year. And some people were a little butthurt. I imagine Tennessee fans were butthurt with my position of them on this list. But hey, it's his first year in the SEC. Can't like they can be 9-3 and good. I would consider that a success. So, yeah, I feel like this is a good spot for him. Louisville, don't sleep on Louisville. They actually did a good job with the transfer portal, though they did take a big hit with Colin Lacey. I don't know how long he's out for, but it sounds like it might be for the year or a large part of the year. That's kind of a big hit, the South Alabama wide receiver. But hey, they got my boy, Tyler Shuck in town. They got a better than you would expect defense. Like this defense lost some players last year, but they still got some hella good players. They didn't lose as much as some people think. SMU, I'm just going to keep them here at 17. I think this is where I had them initially. I'm not moving them. I do think they have probably the easiest schedule among any of the AAC teams or ACC teams. So we're going to keep them here. We're going to say, okay, this is a team that kind of came out in the opener, tripped, fell on their face, but they were able to recover and got the win in dramatic fashion. LSU 16, Garrett Nussmeier. I'm a believer. I want to be a believer in Garrett Nussmeier. I've said the last couple of years, this is probably the best backup in college football right now. Garrett Nussmeier is legit. How much will the defense improve? Because this defense has been a liability. So we shall see. Also, you lost 2 first-round wide receivers and Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas. It's like, sure, they got the talent there to supplement those guys, but like to replace those guys. But you're not going to entirely replace 2 first-rounders. You're just not. Just not. All right. At 15, I got my Miami Hurricanes, the U, baby. The U. I want to believe in the U, but man, they make it hard to believe in them. They just do. And a lot of that is Mario Cristobal. I don't know if he's the guy. I remember going back, we got Cristobal, and I was like, I guess that's fine. And then Dan Lanning ends up going to Oregon. I was like, how does Oregon lose their head coach to another team and then somehow get a better coach? I wish I knew Dan Lanning was available. I wanted Dan Lanning. Is what it is, but nonetheless, the talent's there for Miami. They did well in the transfer portal. I really hope that it I really hope it means something. We're gonna have to win games, and it starts this weekend. Clemson, they're a hard team to bet against because the talent is there. I might personally not necessarily believe in Cade Klubnik. A lot of that is a lot of that is just a little bit of the stink from his was it I guess his freshman season, though we did see him for a little bit because DJU was mainly the quarterback there. But it's not like he was that impressive last year. It's not. But the talent's there. They're a hard team to bet against. So currently I have Clemson as my top ACC team here at 14. At 13, Arizona. They do have a tough stretch of football. They got questions. I'm not too familiar with Brent Brennan, the former San Jose State head coach, now head coach of Arizona, but they were able to bring back Fafita. They were able to bring back McMillan. They were able to bring back Tacario Davis. This team still got talent. They bring the transfer from San Jose State over there to Arizona. They got a decent backfield. Like because they brought in who was it from New Mexico? They brought in Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt. He did initially commit to Arizona, then he decommitted, went to Ole Miss. Ole Miss's backfield is just loaded. So he was like, yeah, maybe I should just go back to Arizona. So here he is. He's here at Arizona. But they also brought in former San Jose State running back. Here it is. Was it Quali Conley? Who wasn't half bad last year. 842 yards rushing, 251 yards receiving. His forced missed tackle rate was kind of nuts at 0.34. His yards after contact were kind of nuts at 4.31. So hold the phones. We might have something here. So don't sleep on Arizona. They do have a tough stretch. I think it's like a 3-game stretch. Liberty's at 12. I think they have the easiest schedule in college football. It's as simple as that. They may have like 2 tough games, one of them being at home. They're in conference games, but to me, they should be undefeated, or if anything, a one loss conference champion. That should be good enough to get into the college football playoff. Oregon's probably my hottest take. Listen, if I was doing this without taking the schedule into account or what I think is going to happen, Oregon's a top 3 team in terms of talent. Like I think Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, those are your most talent-rich teams currently in college football. But Oregon's going to have to get a big win over Ohio State. They're going to get Ohio State in Eugene, fortunately, and I think that's a winnable game for them. It truly is, but let's look at the rest of their schedule. Don't sleep on Boise State. I say don't sleep on Boise State. Like Boise State's going to come in and upset. They're not, but I still like that I could see that being one of those. Again, I go back to this reference. You just put it on the stove. The stove's not quite warm enough. Then again, Dan Lanning teams, they typically start out hot anyway. But later in the year, you got to go to Ann Arbor, take on Michigan. You got to go to Madison, take on Wisconsin. I think there could be a surprise loss in there. There truly can. I mean, to be fair, like their schedule could be worse. So like they probably should end up at worst case scenario, a 2-loss team. But I don't think that's enough. I don't even know if we'll just with 1 loss, if that's going to be enough to get them into the Big 12 or Big 10 championship. So I don't read this for what it isn't. I think Oregon's incredibly talented. Penn State here at number 10. Penn State's been waiting years for these stupid to not be in the same division as Ohio State and Michigan. And now they just have now they just have one big division as a conference. So it's like, okay, cool. Now we have a legitimate shot at a Big Ten championship game. No longer is Michigan and Ohio State the only teams that can compete in the Big 12 or Big 10 championship game, just some squishy team on the other division. I think Penn State's going to do well, man. I like the OC there. I thought he was a really good addition. I think he's going to help unlock Drew Aller because the tools are there for him. Texas got a relatively tough schedule, but they're a really good team. Even if they end up with 2 losses, they should make the college football playoff. Mizzou, they have one of the easier SEC schedules. I think worst case scenario, they're a 2-loss team. I think more than likely they're going to be a 1-loss team. They're going to go 11-1. They bring back a lot of talent on the offense, so I ain't worried. Notre Dame. No Ohio State on the schedule. Like, the schedule is not terrible for Notre Dame. They did a good job of bringing guys in through the transfer portal, whether it was like Bo Collins, Riley Leonard. They have a very good defense. Really, the only question, in my opinion, is the tackle situation. You lost 2 to the NFL and then 1 to injury. Are those guys going to be able to hold up? We'll see. Utah, man. I think Utah is probably the best team in the Big 12. You got Cam Rising, Brent Kuthi. They're coming back healthy. They have a hell of a good linebacking core in Lander Barton and Cornay Reed. It's just a good team. You got, Zamiah? I forgot the corner's name. Zamiah Fawn, I think. He's pretty solid. Like, it's a good team with, honestly, not a terrible schedule. Like, they get Arizona at home. They get Oklahoma State and Stillwater, but I think they could get past those 2 games. And if they can at least get past one of those games, they probably win out. So, yeah, dude, Utah's good. All right, let's run through the top 5 here real quick. Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, he has used the transfer portal to perfection, but he's also developed his own talent. Don't get it twisted. Don't get it wrong. But he's also developed talent through the transfer portal. You look at guys that he's gotten via the transfer portal that he's developed, like Jackson Dart, USL's Bentley. You got like Jared Ivey, JJ Peegs, Trey Harris. Like, now they also bring in like Juice Wells, Princely Uiagalelei. So this is a talent-rich squad. Alabama, it's hard to bet against Alabama, and DeBoer, I think, is going to do a good job in year 1. Their road schedule is a little tougher than yesteryear, but I think they can manage and, like, probably at the very least go 10-2, and that's probably good enough for the college football playoff. Because let's be honest, college football playoff committee, if you're SEC or Big Ten and you're only 2 losses, you're probably in. Everyone else is fighting an uphill battle. Michigan, this might be high for Michigan. We haven't really seen Alex Orji yet. I imagine he's a starter. I don't think they've settled on a starter just yet. So that's yet to be seen. If they have, let me know in the comments. But it's still a talent-rich team. They have so much talent defensively. Probably 2 of the best defensive players in the nation in Will Johnson and Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. You also got just Josiah Stewart, who I was a big fan of back when he was at Coastal Carolina. Last year, he was kind of in the rotation there. Now he's going to be a full-fledged starter. They bring in Jay-Sean Barham, the former Maryland linebacker, who was under the tutelage of Navarro Bowman, who is now a linebackers coach under Jim Harbaugh. It's funny how stuff like that works. So yeah, it's I don't know. Michigan's just hard to bet against. But your two best teams in college football, in my opinion, at least when it comes from a talent standpoint on the roster, it is indeed Ohio State. It is indeed Georgia. I think Ohio State's in a better place than they were last year with Kyle McCord. In Will Howard, they have two monster backs. They have a great defense. They returned a lot of starters. This is similar to when you saw a lot of guys return from Michigan last year. They end up going to the Natty, winning the Natty. This feels like Ohio State's championship to lose, you know? They invested so much money. Honestly, if this team doesn't have a strong run in the college football playoff, because I think Ryan Day could keep his job even if they lose the Big Ten, if they get to the national championship. But if they don't have a strong run in the playoff, then he's probably fired, right? With how much money they invested in bringing guys over, like, yeah. Georgia, they're just great. They develop well. It's one of the most talented teams in football. They return Carson Beck, who was pretty solid for him last season. He's arguably quarterback one for a lot of people in this upcoming draft. Even with Ra Thomas going bye-bye, good riddance. There's still a lot of talent at wide receiver, a lot of talent at tight end, a lot of talent on the offensive line. They do open the year at Clemson. Dare I say, I'm not worried. We will be doing that game for a watch along. That's going to start off our 3-game slate of watch alongs on Saturday. It's going to be Georgia, Clemson, but they do have to travel to Kentucky. They got to travel to Bama, Texas, Mississippi. Golly, that schedule is tough, but this is a team that's equipped for that schedule. Before I get into this next segment, let's take a look at the comments, man. Let's see what y'all talking about. Knowles don't deserve to be in the top 25. It's week 1. Let's not overreact. Kane's record prediction, I think I had them at 9-3, 10-2, one of the two. Utah 6 is insane. I disagree. I don't know if you mean that's good or bad. You're gonna have to fill me in about that. I think Utah at 6 is probably par for the course for a lot of people. Utah's brings back a lot of talent. They bring back a hell lot of talent. So we're going to be talking about some of the prospects that stood out. In particularly, it's a lot of that. A lot of it's going to be the Georgia Tech Florida State game. But since we're talking draft, since we're talking college football prospects, got to give a shout out to my draft guide. I think I got about 300 prospects with full evals on there. I got a ton of other guys that I'm hoping to get to. A ton of guys I'm hoping to still watch. But here's a brief little ad for it. If you want to purchase the draft guide, more information on that is in the description, but here's the ad for
Everybody loves the NFL draft, and I know you want to be familiar with every potential prospect that your team may draft. So I got good news for you. My draft guide is available for purchase. It is good throughout the entire draft cycle, and it updates through the season regularly. You'll get my current evals and rankings on hundreds of different players with player backgrounds and analytics. It also contains combine and pro day numbers, as well as my notes from the Senior and Shrine Bowl. You can purchase it for a one-time payment of $30 on PayPal, Venmo, and now I have the Cash App. Follow the link in the description, and be sure to include your email because it is a Google spreadsheet. That is how I share it with you. So please, don't make me hunt down your email. Just don't do it. Anywho, it's a great purchase, and it's a great way to support the channel.
Okay, well, guys, we're getting into cuts right now. Like, that's kind of insane. Like, Noah Brown just got released. Mike White, he got released from the Dolphins. So, yeah, you got to keep an eye on that, man. I'm recording my Bengals deep dive today. So it's a little little scary, man, if some of these guys I talk about get cut. It doesn't come out till tomorrow, so we'll see. I'll try to keep an eye on that. But let's go ahead. Let's talk about some of the prospects that stood out and some of the prospects that didn't when it came to this week's slate of games. Again, I really just watched 2 games, so I'm only going to be talking about prospects from that Georgia Tech Florida State game. I'm only going to be talking about, well, a prospect from that SMU Nevada game. So let's get this sucker started. Jamal Haynes, running back out of Georgia, had quite the day against Florida State, going for 11 carries for 75 yards, 2 tutties, 16 receiving yards. He's coming in at 5'9", 190. He does feel a little bit bigger than what he's listed at, but not much. You could tell he's more stout than actually girthy, so it gives the illusion of stoutness. If you're unfamiliar, he kind of broke out last year for Georgia Tech. He was initially a wide receiver who made the switch last season to running back and ends up being a 3rd-team All-ACC. Kind of huge, kind of big, and I love that. Like, Tyrone Tracy didn't make that switch until his 6th year in college football. I think it was 6th year, may have been his 5th. Can't remember. Again, that draft feels so long ago. It feels so long ago. But if you're unfamiliar with Haynes, it's funny because his mother used to be a running back who played for the Atlanta Explosion, which is a semi-pro women's tackle football team. That's kind of nuts. That's kind of wild. That's kind of bonkers. But let's talk about what he is as a prospect, because he is fast. He is quick, very explosive, showcases really good long speed, very quick feet. Like he can literally put you in a blender with his stop-start ability, his change of direction. It's just all really good. He's got really good yak ability. Last year, ended up having 46 forced missed tackles, a solid forced missed tackle rate. And he does a good job of keeping his feet moving through contact. Legitimately does a superb job of that. But you're gonna wonder, can he maintain that at an NFL level at 190? That's kind of the concern, because he is a bit undersized, more so just little light at 190. But he has at least the athletic, the speed profile to make it the NFL at that size. He's got some receiving and return ability. Like, this dude's just scary out in space. 11 forced missed tackles on 20 receptions last season. He also brings some return experience. I do want to see the vision and the patience develop a little bit. He's a guy that doesn't like to waste time in the backfield, which that's a good thing. That's a great thing. But there were times, at least last season, where he just kind of smashed into the back of his offensive lineman. And fortunately for him, the offensive line was really good, so that typically resulted in a couple of extra yards. They were able to move the pile, but that ain't gonna work in the NFL, Chief. Also, drops. Like, being a former receiver, you would think his hands would be a little bit better. 16.7 drop rate in 2023 is a little bit alarming. Maybe that might end up being the reason why he ends up moving to run back, because he can't consistently catch the football. Kind of is what it is. But a guy that got put on a guy that watching, I was like, okay, let's slap this dude on the watch list. Watched a couple of his games from last season. I think even the Goat House came out. I was like, oh, this is a pro type. This is a guy that should get drafted next year's class. I'm not quite there yet when it comes to him. Let's talk about the offensive line for Georgia Tech. And I'm going to be talking about Weston Franklin. Ultimately, I think he probably ends up being the top guy along that offensive line, though. I think there could be a case for like Jordan Williams, who was very impressive. I believe he was the right tackle. This past week, he played a hella good. It might be a guy that just continues to ascend up draft boards, but I didn't really get to his tape last year, or I didn't watch a couple of his games from last year like I did with Weston Franklin. I think even the guard for Georgia Tech, Joe Fusil. I didn't watch any of his tapes from last year, so I couldn't really give a proper eval. The guy I really wanted to go back and watch, which I managed to do, was Weston Franklin, who's coming in at 6'4", 310. He's played center like the last 3 years for Georgia Tech, formerly a 4-star recruit. And I get it. They didn't this past weekend, there wasn't a ton of passing. There was some play action, but he's been a reliable center for the last couple of years, and particularly last season. He's got a powerful frame. He's got a great looking build. Really does. Like this, just the wide shoulders gives him that imposing presence. Just look at that. You scared? I am. I'm scared just looking at myself. But he just gives this imposing presence. And he's not just bark, he's got bite. The guy generates a lot of pop from his hands. He keeps driving his feet through contact. He's a big reason that they're able to push piles, and you love to see it. He's also a smooth mover, maybe not like an elite level athlete for the offensive line, but he's a good athlete. Like he's very quick out of his stance. He's quick to get to the second level. He displays good foot speed. I kind of like him in a wide zone blocking scheme, which, hey, they run a lot of outside zone there at Georgia Tech. And he's got that finisher mentality. Like he plays with that NFL nasty. He gets to the second level. He wants to bury somebody 6 feet deep. He plays with discipline and he won't lunge. He's displayed good balance. I didn't see this guy on the ground a ton unless it was like pushing piles. In that case, yeah, you're going to fall. But like he's able to locate guys out in space and effectively deliver the block. However, I will say the hand placement could be a little bit better. There are times where he attacks with wide hands, especially when he gets to the second level. It's like he gets out there and he's like, free hugs, free hugs. It's like, no, why are you going to let the defender in your pads like that? Because there were cases where defenders, they did get in his pads. They could just pop, dip, get out, and make a play on the ball carrier. So would like to see him attack a little bit more with his hands, a little bit more inside. Second level leverage, when he is pulling or getting upfield, he can be a bit tall, giving defenders space to get underneath. This does lead to him getting stonewalled at the second level and just kind of presents the ball carrier with an obstacle to go around rather than him actually properly laying out that second level defender, which will give his ball carrier more room. But love this guy this weekend. I thought he was the standout along the offensive line, though I do want to say watch out for Jordan Williams. I'm hoping to get to him this week as far as an evaluation. But with the good comes the bad. We got to talk about DJ Uiagalelei. Coming in at 6'4", 252. And I've said this before that I used to be a DJU believer. Over the last couple of years, that's it's waned. It's diminished. And he didn't look terrible. Ended up going 18 to 26 for 189. No touchdowns, had 11 rushing yards. And for the most part, I thought he played an okay game. I thought he was inaccurate on a few balls. For instance, you had, I think, like a hitch route or a comeback, like a hook route to Malik Benson that if he would have just put on his chest, he probably could have gained like an extra 3 or 4 yards. Instead, he puts it close to the dirt and Benson had to get down and get under it, which meant he was dead on the, like down on the spot rather than getting a couple of extra yards. There were a couple of other balls I was like, okay, not exactly ideal ball placement, but that's not to say he was inaccurate the whole game. I thought there was a drop that the freshman run back for Florida State had where essentially he put it right here on him. Should have been a catch. And I saw some people comment like, oh, the run back had to turn around and get it. I mean, like, had to like contort his body, turn. It's like, no, typically typically that's where you want to put the ball, where the run back has to turn to come back and get it, and then they turn inside and they push up field. So I thought that was a well-placed ball, but you had some bad decision making on the pass interference call where he got lucky. He ends up just throwing the ball deep rather than taking. You had an in-breaking route where you're DJU. You got the zip. Put a little bit of mustard on it, dude. What are you doing? So, like, not necessarily a turnover-worthy throw. It wasn't. But you were like, there was a better throw to be made, a better option. To be fair, I didn't love a lot of the route concepts for Florida State. I felt like they were, a lot of it was condensed. Like a lot of times, like DJU was looking into just a mess of bodies in the middle of the field or around the hashes before. So like there's no real separation there. And like, I don't know. I think for as much flack people are giving DJU, some of the play calling or play design and some of the receivers, I should say pass catchers, didn't really present a lot of separation either. Like, I don't think this was all on DJU. But all that to say, he's probably not a draftable prospect. He's just not. He's probably a priority UDFA guy with a big arm, but can you ever teach him to be accurate? He's a good athlete at that size. Maybe he makes the transition to like tight end, pull a Logan Thomas. To me, that's kind of the hope at this juncture, at this point for DJU. But hey, let's keep talking about Florida State. Let's talk about Patrick Payton. He had 2 tackles, didn't do anything as a pass rusher. To be fair, I think he only ended up having 12 pass rushing snaps because, well, Georgia Tech, they run football and they run football good. There was a lot of play action. There was a lot of like quick passes. So didn't really enable or give him the ability to go and get actual pressure. But even then, he wasn't winning. He just wasn't winning. Like, let's take a look at the pass rush win rate. Let's take a look. Oh, it's not good. It's not good. You know why? Because it's 0. It's freaking 0. He won none of his pass rushes. Of the 12, won none. You know who was winning pass rushes? Marvin Jones, 18.2%. Joshua Farmer, 16.7%. They combined for 3 pressures on 12 pass rushing opportunities. You have Daryl Jackson. He wasn't winning either, but to be fair, we kind of known he's very raw as a pass rusher. You love the size, you love the explosiveness, but he's a pocket pusher and a very good run stuffer. Better was expected of Patrick Payton. Now, I will say, someone I think tweeted me a clip of him not being able to get around the tight end. I think some of that was he was kind of asked to spy and kind of seal up the edge just in case Haynes King would book it. But then again, I don't know what he was asked to do. I'm not in the huddle. I don't know what Florida State's asking Patrick Payton to do on that play. I'm just not going to overreact to it. I mean, Patrick Payton's, he's got the explosiveness. He's got the ability to beat a tight end on a pass rush snap. So I have a hard time believing he was unable to beat a tight end on a pass rush snap. But I will say, not a good look. This is why coming in the process, I had him as a 3rd rounder. I get it. Some people have the 1st round upside with him, and I get it. I believe it. It's there. But we got to see that consistency. And I'll just say Saturday, not a good start. Not a good start. I do want to cover one more player from this game, and we're going to jump back to Georgia Tech, and it is Ahmari Harvey, corner out of Georgia Tech, 6 foot, 190 pounds. I went back, watched this tape, and I actually really liked it quite a bit. I have him down as a draftable prospect based on a few of the games that I watched from last season. If you're unfamiliar with him, former 4-star recruit from the 2021 recruiting class. He was a former wide receiver and defensive back at in high school. He also participated in track and field as a long jumper. Initially went to Auburn after his freshman season, which he redshirted. He transferred, probably saw the writing on the wall with Harrison there. Ends up going to Georgia Tech. Didn't play till last season, where he started 6 games. But golly, he was impressive in those 6 games. He ended up having 3 interceptions last season, allowed a completion rate of 5.3%. The thing that stuck out most, because if you're unfamiliar, what really put him on my radar was, I think it was the 4th down early in the game for Florida State, where he's essentially Florida State. They got the corner set up to watch the flat, watch the running back out of the backfield, while he has either, I think, help from the slot or the safety to play underneath. So the minute he sees that running back break out to the flats, he just comes running, screaming downhill, makes the 4th down stop. Huge. He had 8 tackles in this game. This guy was very active around the line of scrimmage. He was. He had 2 defensive stops, for goodness sake, at corner. Kind of nuts. That leads me to believe that he's got slot versatility, even though he's hardly ever played in the slot over his career. The dude's a mean hitter. He hits big. Like he comes downhill like a torpedo, throws caution to the wind, goes and lays a lick. That does lend itself to a higher missed tackle rate, but it's not outrageous. Like 12.8 is actually pretty good for a corner. It really is. He's also shown ball skills, like downfield. You'll see him play like a receiver. He had a deep ball last year. I think it was against Boston College. Quarterback throws it up, and he just plays it better than the receiver, ends up coming down with the interception. So it was a thing of beauty. He'll go up. He'll high point the football. I think he's going to do really well in the vertical. I really do. Thought it was very impressive. But I do think he's a zone corner. They play a lot of zone there at Georgia Tech, and he's got good zone eyes. Does his best work, honestly, with the play in front of him, reading the quarterback, reading what's going on, and then making a play from there. That's why, again, I think he can work in the slot. So I think he could play inside and play outside. I will say some of the things I didn't like. I don't know if he could play man, or at least man on the outside, because I'm not confident in the long speed. He's very much someone that if he can't get his hands on you, you could probably get a step or two of separation, but he's also very good at using his hands during the route. So I'm not too worried about that. There is processing concerns with him, at least on the intermediate to deep. You saw this in the Florida State game on a 4th down near the red zone for Florida State, where he was just, he does a good job of clicking and closing on underneath plays, but like he seems a tick late in terms of like jumping on intermediate to deep. It just feels like the anticipation might not be there. And he just kind of gives ample space. Like he caught, I think it was a levels concept by Florida State. But regardless, you had a receiver on an in-breaking route, and it was his duty to come in and guard that guy. But he just noticed it too late and ended up being late to the football. Bam, they convert that 4th down. But at the end of the day, I really liked what I saw from Harvey. He played a relatively good game. You see that 66.7% percent catch rate. And really, a lot of those were underneath passes, like quick screens and whatnot. So I'm not worried about those, like garbage targets. I say garbage, not necessarily that they mean nothing but garbage in terms of they're easy to get receptions that'll unfortunately inflate the catch rate he allowed. So I thought he had a good showing. I think my early projection for him is mid to late day 3 though. All right, let's go to this SMU game. We got to talk about the guy that had the game-winning catch. That's not the game-winning catch right there for RJ Maryland because I wanted to get a good-looking pitcher, so this was the one I could find. But he makes the game-winning reception to win the game for SMU. Sliding, looked beautiful. Regardless, he's coming in at 6'4", 37 pounds, excuse me. So he is a little undersized, but he is also a third-year player, a junior. So he's young. He's got time to add some mass to his frame. He's got room to add mass. I'm not worried about it. He's a guy with lineage. He's a guy with lineage. His father was Russell Maryland, who was formerly a number 1 overall pick in the 1991 NFL draft. Playing defensive tackle for the Hurricanes, ends up playing for the Cowboys, Raiders, and Packers during his career. He's actually in the Hurricanes Hall of Fame. And now his son's out here playing ball, and he is an explosive athlete. He just is. I mean, he's got a track background, so it's to be expected. But he's definitely more of a jumbo receiver. He has the jets to get immediate separation off his release. He has the length in the burst to just be a nightmare up the seams. He has the bend in the burst to create good separation and a solid window on outbreak and routes. It's just scary. The ball tracking is really good, as you could tell from that Nevada game. That he just does a good job tracking the ball, going up, trying to pluck it out of the air. He shows good body adjustment to the pass, and he just demonstrates composure when having to make over-the-shoulder catches. You love to see it. I will talk about we could talk about the ball skills a little bit. He does have some perplexing drops on tape. He had a 12.8% drop rate last season. But he has the ability to be better at that. You're just kind of hoping he could be a bit more consistent. He's got good versatility. He's played in the slot, in line, outside, as an H-back. However, he is currently lacking weight. He's lacking play strength. He's lacking the sand in the pants to be a consistent inline player. He's young. He's got the room to add some of that play strength, some of that muscle mass. But I'm just saying, as it stands now, he's not a guy that can survive in line in the NFL. He's just not that. The route running, he's not the most nuanced route runner. He's just out there trying to be a better athlete than the defender, which that'll work in college football, but it won't in the NFL. He needs to do a better job of consistently getting separation through, whether it's changing the tempo of his routes, maybe sinking his hips on his brakes so he's a bit more crisp out his brakes, maybe throwing in a little bit more deception when it comes to his fakes, like flipping the hips. So there are definitely things he could work on, but what we've seen thus far, last year, he was a menace, 518 yards, 7 touchdowns. He started the year with a bang against Nevada, 8 receptions, 162 yards, a touchdown, the touchdown to win the game there. So there's a lot to like when it comes to RJ Maryland. But yeah. Let's quickly look into the chat. I think we got another comment here. Hey Walt, how you doing? Hopefully you're having a good day, my friend. Hopefully you're having a good day. Before I go today, I do want to go back over and cover some of the games coming up this week. Let me just get this up here. There we go. Let's talk about some of the games this weekend. You got some cupcake games like Western Carolina, NC State. That'll be on Thursday. Mizzou, Murray State, Lindenwood, Kansas, Utah, Southern Utah. So you got cupcake games on Thursday. Friday, Oklahoma Temple, cupcake. Saturday is where it's at. Clemson, Georgia. Currently, Georgia's a 13.5-point favorite. I kind of like that. I kind of like Georgia being potential. Like, I like that that spread gives you room to take. If you think Georgia's going to win by 2 touchdowns, you could bet that down to like 9.5. I'm fairly confident in Georgia that you don't need to. Over and under is 48.5. I'm curious if that's because they think Clemson won't be able to cover enough points in that, but that's gonna be a fun game. That's gonna be our first watch along game of the day. You got Penn State and West Virginia. Currently, Penn State 8-point favorite. I would take West Virginia plus 8.5. I don't think they necessarily win this game. I mean, it's at home, that helps. But I think it's going to be closer than people think. This is a really good West Virginia squad. Penn State, I do think, is the more talent-rich team. And ultimately, I do think Penn State comes away with it. But I do think it's going to be closer than people anticipate. We also got Miami versus Florida. Miami, 2.5-point favorite. Give it to me. I'll take Miami 2.5. I think Miami wins this game. They need to win this game. I don't care if it's in Gainesville. Miami needs to win this game. You don't win this game, I'm not going to have faith in you getting what? I don't have faith in you in your ACC slate. I just don't. What, you're going to probably go in there and you're going to probably lose 2 to 3 games, not compete for the ACC, not make the college football playoff. Like, screw that. At that point, Cristobal, get them out of here. Just get them out of here. It's a must-win for Miami. Likewise, it's actually a must-win for Florida as well. I do lean Miami. Both have brought in solid transfers. Miami, though, kind of the one that matters is Cam Ward. Let's see. Notre Dame, Texas A&M. This will be the game that we do a watch-along on during the night. At 4:30 my time. 4:30 my time. I'm out in the AZ. I think Notre Dame comes away with this game. I would just take Notre Dame on the money line. Like, I think they're currently the better team. You got a new head coach at Texas A&M. I love him, but you got to imagine that there's going to be some bumps and lumps. And Notre Dame feels like it's going to be one of those bumps and lumps. You got Connor Wegman. Can he stay healthy? I think he does, but I have more faith in the Notre Dame defense. I just do. And that's not to say Texas A&M isn't a talented team. That was kind of the joke with Jimbo. A guy that can recruit well, but when it comes to the on-the-field product, it was crap. So this is a team with a lot of talent, but I just lean Notre Dame, man. I'm pretty high on Notre Dame, I suppose. Pretty high on Notre Dame. Of course, Sunday, we got USC, we got LSU. That's going to be Sunday night. Unfortunately, can't do a watch along for that game because I will be having my big money fantasy football draft that night with some of my friends. It's my big money league. Can't miss that. We're going to have this on the tube. That's going to be great. But LSU, you kind of want to start the year out. Like, for me, this is a must win for both to start the year. Like Garrett Nussmeier, you got a new quarterback at the helm. Will the defense be better? USC, you have a new quarterback at the helm. Lincoln Riley, you're starting to feel a little bit pressure. Like, all right, we didn't really produce the way we wanted while I had Caleb Williams last 2 years. If anything, last year was a big regression. Now it's our first year in the Big Ten. how much leeway am I going to be really given? We got to kind of come out here and win. LSU's the same way. They got this over and under at 64.5. I think you could go the over there. I truly do. I think there's going to be a lot of points in this affair. I really do. It's going to be fascinating. It's going to be fun to watch, but nonetheless, I think that's it for me today, guys. I think that's it for me today. If you do have any like comments, you could always super chat or just throw it in the chat in general, and I'll read those. Like we got sports here. Georgia's O-line is going to win, beat the hell out of most teams. Exactly. I agree with that. As I having these segments is designed so that in between those segments, I could go in and I could still talk with the chat while still being able to get across what I want to get across. I'll have a couple of videos out for you today. They're just going to kind of be the broken up segments of this video. But thanks for hanging out with me. This is going to be a weekly thing. We're going to be here college football on Mondays. And then on Tuesdays, it's going to be the NFL. I think next week, maybe we end up. No, I think maybe this ends up being a Tuesday stream next week. Potentially, since we have Labor Day on Monday. I haven't decided yet, but you'll know it when you see it. I'll schedule it. But thank you for hanging out with me. It's always a good time, but as always, until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.